Welcome to another Atchman Kings of War Battle Report, the Epic Quest, the finale. Salamanders versus RiftForged Orcs, 2,300 points, and the scenario was control. This is the final of 20 games for the Epic Quest. The Epic Quest was my plan to use every one of the armies that I own or can field, all in battle reports. I've made the most of the army list in advance, so if there's no way I can just set one up to beat a particular foe. Currently I have 20 armies, and I'm right now starting today working on my new Abyssal Dwarf project. All armies has to be fully painted to appear in the Epic Quest. Basing's still kind of a work in progress on some, and plus I mix some armies together, and so their bases don't exactly match, even if they are based. So why? It was nice to get them all out of the box for a long time. Some of those armies I haven't played, in fact, have never played, or play so rarely. It's just, I don't even know why I have them. I should probably sell them. But it was enjoyable to get them all out of the box, do some repairs to them, and just see how they look. So 3 of the 4 local players all have Salamander armies, so I end up playing against them a lot. John's primary army is Salamanders, and Craig's favorite army is Salamanders, so I get in more games with them than any other foe. The interesting thing is also during the Warhammer days, the same thing applied. So I ended up playing against, there was actually even another guy that had Salamanders during that time, or Lizardmen as they were called then. So I've played against them a lot, and sometimes the same models, for over a decade now. Craig had a Salamander army. I call it the Fire Lizards, or Fire Force, or Fire something. 2 hordes of fire elementals, 1 greater fire elemental, a horde of geckos with a hammer of measured force, the Whispering Scales formation, which is really interesting. It has 2 regiments of primes that have scout, stealthy, and they have an aura of elite from the battle captain. And I believe the greater fire elemental gives them also an aura of a wild charge. They got like every rule. I've actually had to look at his sheet a couple of times because I'm like, you can't tell me they have all those damn rules. A horde of Salamander primes with the effigy of fire, 3 troops of Ember sprites, a phoenix, a battle captain on a mount with blade of slashing, a herald with loot, a mage priest mounted with bane chant, another mage priest with surge, for a total of 16 drops and 24 unit strength. Okay, this is my first time playing RiftForged Orcs. I don't have any of the special models. The Thunder Seers I have are my old Chaos Ogres, so that they're just going to have to do because there's really nothing that they transpose over in Kings of War that I found. So I'm just using them for the Thunder Seers. Starts off with 3 regiments of Morax, a horde of Unforged Orcs, a regiment of Reborn Legion, 1 regiment of Gore Riders with a Potion of the Caterpillar, a Storm Giant, which I thought was really cool, the Shrine, 1 horde of Thunder Seers with a Blade of Sharpness, 2 regiments of Orklings, a Stormbringer with the Scythe and Storm Strike, and 3 Rift Forgers, all mounted for 15 drops and a total unit strength of 26. So here's the both armies poised, and this is from the Orc side of the table, and I'll go through the army list there. On the left flank, I had my Storm Giant. A unit of Orklings was shielding a unit of Gore Riders. One of my Rift Forgers was over here. A regiment of Morax, and then the Shrine is there. I'm sorry, I just hacked that thing together in a few minutes, and just so I'd have one on the battlefield. Next to the Shrine was a unit of Unforged Orcs, and then over next to them, to act as more inspiring, the Reborn Orcs over there. Those are all old. That's old Black Orcs and old GW Orcs. I think I'm going to call that Shrine the Horny Shrine now that I look at it in this picture. Craig had started piling units of Salamander primes over on his left flank, so I had to go ahead and stick something back. So I started out with just Orklings over there. Next thing you know, I've got half the army. So the Orklings are on the far left in the picture, and then behind them is the lethal Thunder Seers, and I gave them the Brew of Sharpness so that they are even more lethal. Next to them, and in between them, is a Rift Forger, and then the Morax unit is there with the I think it's the Stormbringer behind them, and then another Rift Forger, and then yet another unit of Morax, and those you see on the right there are those Reborn Legionnaires. Now, from the Salamander side of the table, you could look. What's really nice about playing in Craig's garage is that he's got really good lights in there. And with those good lights, it lets me take my pictures look so much better, and you'll get less blurry shots in there. So over on his left flank, across from all my junk there, he had a regiment of Salamander Primes and then another regiment of Salamander Primes. Those are part of his Whispering Scales formation. And then right in the middle, he had a Prime Horde. Behind them, he had 2 troops of Ember Sprites, and then the Greater Fire Elemental and Battle Captain is sandwiched in there somewhere. So you could barely see him. I think he's right in front of the Greater Fire Elemental. Okay, supporting all those Salamander Primes, of course, there's his Herald is there with the loot, and then next to the Phoenix, you have 2 Mage Priests. One of them's mounted, one is on foot, and then the Phoenix itself. To shelter all those units, we had a horde of geckos with a hammer of measured force, and that's always a tricky unit because one game I took a bunch of heavily armored stuff and they ate me alive. And over here on the extreme right flank is the fire contingent, or fire force, or strike force, whatever you want to call them. It starts off with a troop of Ember Sprites, 2 hordes of fire elementals, and then the battle captain is right in between them. I think he also provides inspiring, but I might be wrong. So that's the end of what's over here, because there's my giant and a lot of heavy units over on this side of the table, and this is going to be a classic smash mouth over here. So I got turn 1. We're playing control. I like to have that initiative by getting to go first, especially for control. I want to get my big unit strength planted on the middle and then just defend it. I just moved everything forward as best I could. There was really no easy path to move forward in this game, and you can even see in the middle there is a wall right square in the middle of the main section of the table. So there's really like no open spaces to move through unless you moved over here on the extreme left, I think. The Shrine opens fire on his battle captain and does 3 wounds to him. That was good. And then the Storm Giant goes ahead and blows back the unit of Ember Sprites that had scouted forward. I really like using my single heroes to jam other people's army, and Craig knows this. And I stuck all 3 RiftForgers come sneaking forward just a little bit, and the Snotlings, they're not Snotlings, Orclings moved up on the hill as well to counter his Ember Sprites. So, but you can see all 3 of those RiftForgers are out there just looking for an opportunity to jam something up. In Craig's turn, he moved forward pretty resolutely. He stuck his Gecko Warriors horde right into the woods there for shelter, and then everything else moved forward online. The Ember Sprites came forward and did 5 freaking wounds to my RiftForger, and I thought they were going to kill him. I think they did waver him, as a matter of fact. They wavered him, and I was like, are you kidding me? From those little goobers, those turned out to be a pretty good little chaff unit. They did really well, especially on this side of the table during this game. I'm not really sure what Craig's plan is here, because all that fire stuff and the Phoenix and both Mage Priests got moving strongly to the right-hand side. I guess that's to oppose my giant that's over there, and he didn't want nothing to do with that. But that really kind of left nothing in the middle for me to play with. So kind of interesting. It's just like, you probably could have just set up over there and just did a loaded flank. So. All right, now you can see the fire squads advance here on my left flank to try to blunt my giant. He was just trying to stay out of reach of him, because I think the giant would have hammered his guys, and then I'm going to use a wind blast to keep blowing them back if I could. The thing is something that Tom Annis and I discussed one day, is that the problem with lots of surge in your army, it's got all these cool tricks and things like that you do, but you can't reposition quickly. I mean, especially like all these elementals and stuff, none of that stuff can march. So instead of being up in my face, it's going to let me kind of dictate the motion of the battle, so to speak. So with the control scenario, it's really, you're trying to really get the middle. So I was just trying to keep everything on his side of the table as much as possible. And then, so I went ahead and moved the giant into the little field there. I charged the Orclings into his Ember Sprites just to keep them from jamming up my giant. And then the Gore Riders moved up on the edge of the hill so they could see over the hill, and as did the unit of Morax there. You could just see the horn of the horny shrine sticking out there at the corner there, getting in position to throw some more lightning bolt. So is often my plan of counter chaff, I went ahead and sent my RiftForger into the unit of Emperor Sprites on the right-hand side. Unfortunately, my plan blew up in my face as I failed to do a wound, and now they could move right through me without me even stopping. The RiftForger down here on the left, he just turned his base slightly since he's wavered, and that allowed my unit of Morax to kind of sneak toward the hull. I didn't move much. It probably wasn't even an inch total, but I just felt like I needed to do something. So the only really clear place to move was toward the middle. And yeah, I got to the middle and there was a wall. So I just moved up to the wall. The Horny Shrine moved up there next to it. And I think I fired lightning bolt at somebody this turn. The Reborn Legionnaires and the other unit of Morax, they're stuck beside because of the terrain there. And there was really no place in this game for me to charge a turn without being hindered by something. So it was going to be a complicated game just because it wasn't going to be very lethal, especially on the charge. And you'll see that later on when I hit something with a massive amount of hindered charges and barely get rid of it. My RiftForger, he goes crazy and does 3 wounds to those fire elementals, and they're gonna be in trouble because the giant, you saw, he snuck up on there. You know, he's just waiting for them to kill him. And I don't think they can, if they roll backwards, I don't think that they can get out of his charge arc or out of his charge distance. So that was going to be interesting. And then the Gore Riders there add another interesting element because they charge even further. Because I didn't wound the Ember Sprites, they're able to move right through me. I think, though, they have to charge to do that because otherwise, you're moving within an inch of me. You're moving through me and then behind me. So he wasn't. I'm pretty sure that might have been illegal. It would have been legal as long as he charged the Orklings. I think that he could go right through that unit. So it didn't matter. I mean, it wasn't that big a deal. But the other Ember Sprites moved forward to shoot my damn RiftForger again. So I think he did one more wound, and after that, I don't think they become a problem anymore. The Geckos moved up just slightly, and their base is just maybe a 1/4 inch forward. I'm not making a cheeky charge. I'm just telling you. So when you see my next response, you'll understand why I can do what I did. But they moved forward, just angled just a little bit there to protect the flank of those Salamander Primes. That's the end of the regiment there. Kind of hard to tell because it's regiment, horde, regiment on there, and they're all the same color. So unless you know what you're looking at, they're all the same thing. They're all painted exactly the way. So over here, my RiftForger had done the job. It put 3 wounds on those stupid elementals, and now I was setting it up for a giant and maybe even the Gore Riders to get into a fight with those fire elementals and take them out. Craig debated this for like 5 minutes. I bet I have 10 different pictures of the same situation. But what he eventually did, though, was to turn the elementals all the way around, backed up, did a formation change, and turned toward the Phoenix, and then surged. He had surge 16 over there and surged the fire elementals back away from outer charge range of the giant, which I thought was hilarious. So here's the after shot after he has went ahead and backed those guys away. The Ember Sprites and the Orklings are having a nice little battle amongst themselves there, and because Ding Dong is healing them on top of that, so it's making it a pain to get rid of them. Orklings aren't very effective anyway, and then you got somebody healing them on the other side. This is not good. I've had some great charges in my Kings of War career, but this has to be my favorite one. Just look at that amount of green awesomeness, getting ready to slam those Salamanders' fingers in the door. So I charged the everything, a Morax unit, the Reborn Legionnaires, the Unforged into that one unit because I knew I was hindered. Every damned one of those units was hindered, and I had no terrain mitigation there. The very wounded RiftForger charges into the unit of Salamander Primes on the extreme right of that unit of all those Salamanders, and that's to jam him up so that they can't really respond next turn. I think, though, he figures out he can back up and then charge that by just kind of twisting the base and hitting them and then sliding. So that worked out for him anyway. But this was a hammer blow, as they say, from this massive charge. I was getting tired of the Ember Sprites holding me up, so I sent one unit of Morax into them, the one on the left here that's been shooting up my poor Riftforger. And then the one on the right, I sent the Orclings into, and the Stormbringer into that unit, hopefully to knock them out as well, and open up the charge for my really nasty unit there. 30 swings with Brew of Sharpness. Oh, yeah, it's going to hurt. So I went ahead and just supported that. I'm just trying to knock them out of the way so I could get a nice, easy charge. The problem that you have sometimes with these chaff units, and I noticed it years ago, is that what you have sometimes is they end up screwing up your own army. You think you're going to come up and they'll die and you'll charge. Well, if they sit there and do like these guys did and hold forever, you can't even charge in. Except, you could charge my chaff now, big deal. But they work against you if you don't use them the right way. So it's time for these stupid Ember Sprites to die all the way across the board this turn. If you're a new player, I wanted to see when I charged that unit of of geckos. See how far my big giant horde moved to the left now? That's going to keep me from getting flank charged because I don't know if you recall from the turn before, but those fire elementals are turned the wrong direction. They are actually turned toward the back of the table. Also, that allowed I got sick of the Surgers, so I sent the my Riftforger into his mounted Mage Priest to try to at least do a wound to him so he can't surge anymore. Because I didn't want him to be able to turn those guys around and surge back the other way, or even worse, into my flank. So just want to show you what Craig is seeing as stuff's going on. You can see here my Riftforger is after his Mage Priest mounted, and then you could tell that I put an arrow there just so you notice that the Fire Elementals, because of their surge last turn, are still facing away from the rest of my army. The Fire Elementals here on the left are facing toward the Unforged Orcs. Yep, that is a lot of Salamander Primes. But like I said, you could see that they're kind of stuck behind all of these swarms. He can't really bring them to bear just because his own guys have gotten in his way at this point. And that's allowing me to fight where I want to on the other side of the table. I love this charge so much. Now you get to see it from the other side. So my Riftforger, he went ahead and charged into the mounted Mage Priest. And I think I only did one wound. And I was like, well, at least you can't throw spells this turn. I pick up the dice for the first roll and roll boxcars. And then I turned right around and he goes, well, I've got these guys and they can you got to inspire. I said, okay, fine. I picked up the dice and rolled an 11 and wiped him out. After some of the bad dice I've had the last few weeks, I thought this was just so classic. And Craig wasn't nearly as amused by it as I was. So you can see now I have bent back his right flank to the extreme with all my stuff coming off the hill, ready to slaughter anything that moves forward into my Unforged Orcs. And then the swarm finally died this turn, and the Orclings overran a couple of inches there. But probably made a mistake not moving my giant forward a little bit. But I don't know what I was thinking there with the giant. But he was having a good time just keeping them back from getting into the area so they could score. So with all of the swings, it took every swing and every hit to kill that unit of geckos. Having everything hindered, there was no place on this battlefield that I could charge that wasn't hindered. And so no matter where I went, I was going to be hindered. So I had to just bring incredible amount of force to it. But even with all those swings, I barely killed them. I killed them on the dot. So it wasn't one of those snake eye situations at all. They actually had a chance of staying there. The Riftforger, he did a couple of wounds. I maybe done 3 wounds to that unit of, even though despite he was wavered, to that unit of Salamander Primes there. And now they're in a tricky spot. One of the things that, I've played a lot of people that like this double envelopment thing kind of, and weak center. Well, the weak center can bite you in the rear end because if a competent player sees that you don't have anything there, they move in and do exactly what I'm doing. They've opened up. Now they've got both flanks. No matter which way you go on each flank, now you're destroyed because your flanks are wide open. You need to have something in the middle or have a plan. You're much better off echeloning than you are sometimes going with this weak center. I mean, look up Frederick the Great's echelon attack, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And that's how to handle this. You want my middle to move way forward, while you're bringing your door around to swing, and that's the purpose of the echelon, just like so they can't attack your whole line at one time. So Craig charged his battle captain and his fire elementals into the Unforged Orcs. The Phoenix had to come forward and block my attack. I mean, you just had to sacrifice him. There was no way otherwise. I mean, both of us looked at this right ways and back ways, and just could not figure out how to get him out of the situation. He did use his mage priest to surge into my RiftForger, who had killed his other mage priest. So at least he could get something out of it to try to bring those fire elementals into the game. I just want to point out, sometimes it's really nice to take pictures of a game, even if you're not going to do a battle report. It's just fun to take them sometimes. But in this case, it actually had a valuable use because of the situation we were in. Craig moved stuff and realized that it was bad, and we couldn't figure out exactly where it is. So we just rolled the camera back to see what was happening. So in this case, his Salamander Prime Horde charged my Stormbringer. The other Ember Sprites charged back into my last unit of Orklings over there. He couldn't do anything else because he could not fit between the Stormbringer and the other Riftforger. We thought we could slide it in. As soon as he moved, both figures moved, so we knew instantly he wasn't going to make it. So he had to do something else. So he just went after the Stormbringer instead of there's really nothing else he could do, honestly. So the Phoenix fireballs my Orklings. In this case, I could look back at this the next day and go, I would have left the Orklings there, because right now they're blocking up the giant from doing anything. I'm in my own way, essentially, right there. So the fire elementals did manage to get revenge and take my RiftForger off the table. So he did such a good job killing that mage, and it was we all knew he had to die, but it was just it's a great story. The fire elementals and the battle captain do a very respectable 10 wounds to my unit of Unforged Orcs. I remember the Unforged Orcs only have an armor of 4. They're not armor 5 like real orcs. So they are a little bit more vulnerable to things like this. And it was just that that's probably actually an average amount of hits and wounds, but it was very respectable. Got the waiver on them. But the Horny Shrine gives them the aura of fury, so I'm going to be able to go right back into them next turn. His Salamanders do 4 Salamander Primes, do 4 wounds to the unit of Morax. And the deal here is that because he was fighting the RiftForger, when he made this charge, it was a fresh charge, not a counter charge. So he had to pay for the Pathfinder again, but then he mentioned he had the aura Pathfinder. I'm like, whoops. But he still only did 4 wounds, so I wasn't in too bad a shape. So the Salamander Primes did do some wounds to my Stormbringer, but did not kill him, and so he just backs out, discretion being the better part and all that stuff. The my Orklings were wavered last turn by the silly Ember Sprites, and the problem is, again, is that they are still blocking up. He's got a whole 2 units that can't even get into the fight. So essentially he's spotting me those points. Of course, I'm spotting him, this very effective unit down, 280 point unit down here too. My Morax goes ahead and slams into the unit of Salamander Primes, and they've got some wounds on them going in, but I just need them to hold for a second while I deal with this menace on the left. So since the Morax held out, the Reborn Legionnaires go slamming into the flank of the Salamander Primes. That's not going to be good, even though, yet again, I am hindered for the 100th time. I think, like I said, every charge in this game, I was hindered. It was just, there was a lot of terrain right here in the middle that could slow you down. So it's just a point there. And then the aided by the Horny Shrine, they went ahead and countered the young the Unforged. Go ahead and recharge into the unit of fire elementals. So I'm not messing around now. I'll launch a wholesale assault into the Phoenix, hoping to hit that, then roll it up and go on into the rest of the line and finish them off. Really nice having the Fury aura on the Shrine, just because it's going to help me right here do some damage to those fire elementals. You can see at this point the battle captains wavered, and the reason why is because I countercharged the fire elementals, and he was not engaged anymore. And so I went ahead and put a lightning bolt to him, did 1 wound, and then rolled an 11 and wavered him. So I was, again, with the 11s, it was not nice against Craig this time. My dice were really doing some good things. So at this point in the game, I didn't take very many more pictures, but we called it. The reason why is I had just a tremendous amount of unit strength left, and he was going to lose his fire elementals this turn, maybe both units of them. So, like I said, it's going to be bad just there because I've actually got everything stuck on his right side, and then the Reborn Legionnaires and the unit of Morax is going to hit that Salamander Prime Horde in the flank and probably get rid of them too. There was just no way that Craig was going to get in position with enough scoring points to win the game. I mean, I've got a horde and those 2 regiments there, and there's more coming into the 12-inch circle. Not so sure that prime horde isn't in that circle as well, and probably the fire elemental could have been. But they were probably going to die from all of the other stuff that was coming into the fight at this point in time. Well, the RiftForged Orcs get their first win. Got to say that because I didn't have any of the special models or anything, that it probably played just like regular orcs. Matter of fact, I think in this situation, my regular orc army would have been much better than this RiftForged one. But I do kind of like the shrine thing. That was an interesting twist on the army. Been playing 2,000 points for my regular orcs, and basically I could have almost taken the same army and just put the shrine in it at 2,300. So kind of interesting army. Like I say, I don't see it's that much different than the other ones. But then again, I never got to see what the Thunder Seers could do. They were stuck behind Ember Sprites the entire game. And so I never saw what they could do. And I didn't even realize they had 30 swings. I was like, holy crap. And then I gave them Brew of Sharpness too. So they would have been effective against almost anything, especially if you were near the shrine and could throw Bane Chant on it. And I don't think I used the shrine the right way. I should have studied up on it a little bit more. I mean, I think one time I actually did do the 2 spell thing where I shot one thing and then Bane Chant on another unit. So I never threw the extra swing spell. Yes, I did. I threw it one time. I got 1 swing, so it wasn't very effective. And but that's just situational. I'm assuming. But the other thing about the RiftForged Orcs is I didn't realize the Unforged have armor 4 until I started using them. I started using them like I use regular orc boys, and I realized, they're not quite the same. The Gore Riders, I thought maybe they would make them a little better in this list without war drums. Oh no, they are basically a throwaway unit or a glass hammer. Their leadership is still abominable, and I don't know. I mean, you'd have to have something around them to help them out a lot, and I don't see anything with Rally in the list, and maybe I'm just missing it. That would help a tremendous amount. But like I said, I'm so used to using the war drum, and all of a sudden you have morale that is normal again on the things that aren't part of the special stuff. So the Fire Salamanders was an interesting list. I think that probably the mistake was that basically the things that need to be surged needed to be checkerboarded in with the regular units. That way, whatever the primes, who are a fairly tough unit, stop, there should be a surging unit going into them at all times. And in this case, the large fire elemental, greater fire elemental, he wasn't used at all. I mean, he basically just spotted me those points, kind of like my Thunder Seers not getting into the action. So he would have been way better off over here on the his right flank, I think, trying to help out with the giant and stuff like that. So I think, though, that the secret would be when I use surgers and regular units, I put the surgers in between and use them as flankers. And a greater fire elemental is an excellent flanker. Matter of fact, if I was going to take one surge unit, I would just take him because of his base size and stuff and how easily it is to get these quick charges in the flank. I really... John has been using a greater fire elemental, and it's been very effective to the point where I try to single it out and target it every game because of what it can do. But I think sometimes with surgers that you spend a ton of points getting them to be able to actually do anything, and those points don't pan out. And like we saw in this game, any kind of rapid movement, if you have surge, you're screwed. I mean, unless you just are just loaded with magic users that can surge, you can't rapidly deploy. I've had that happen playing my undead where, yay, my cavalry broke through that's shambling. I'm like, oh crap, they can't go anywhere because they're going 6 or 7 inches a turn. And that's the problem with surge sometimes and people always say, well, you can do all these tricky things. But you have to practice with it and know what you're doing. You can't just say, I got an undead army, I got surge, I'm going to win. It don't work that way. I mean, you play against a veteran player, and they're not going to give you very many opportunities to do some surge tricks. So what you have to do is you're going to have to make them yourself. You're going to have to, like I said, checkerboard units that can be surged in between regular units and use them that way. Combine that with your chaff to do some stuff. And the thing is that the even the chaff in this army is actually shambling. So just like I said, I think that maybe you could make this army work. I just think that you have to do some more. Spend less on support. Maybe you have one surge guy and he's kind of in charge of everything, and otherwise you're going to spend all these points on it, and you might as well just had another unit of something else that could have held up for a turn. So anyway, I mean, I like the idea of, and I've messed with it on paper before, but I've never really come up with how to make a true fire army with the salamanders. But I mean, it looks pretty. I mean, all that orange and red, that's great looking army. But I'm just not exactly sure how it really is supposed to work. And if anybody has any ideas, just please tell me. John has used in his 3,000 point army, uses the Phoenix and the Greater Fire Elemental, and they've worked really well in that army. Not so much in this army. I just don't know if what the deal was. I like the Phoenix, but man, a Phoenix he's really not a combat model. He is a support model, and even though he looks like he could kill you, he can't. And I mean, I've used it to attack before too, and it's just like, I know better, and then I do it, and he gets killed. And you're like, well, I knew better, and I still got killed, So that's the epitome of craziness. But anyway, I just thought, like I said, I think that maybe if he would have spread his salamander primes out and checkerboarded the fire elementals and stuff in there, and maybe even he used the Ember Sprites really well down here on his right flank to keep me bottled up. But on the left flank, they screwed him every time because of he just couldn't get through them with all of his unit strength to kill me. And I mean, I was on the back foot over here on the right flank, but because he couldn't get to me, it didn't matter. So then that allowed me to break the middle and start rolling him up. So anyway, like I said, chaff is a two-edged sword sometimes, especially chaff that's tough. I mean, the problem with those things is they'll either die or whatever, but they got a leadership of 11. So, I mean, there's a lot of times they're going to stay when you really want them to go. And if you got inspired next to them, it's even worse because you want them to go, then all of a sudden they stay again because you had to re-roll it. So, anyway, think about the chaff. I know my friend Sean wrote an excellent article on chaff and how to use it, but I think sometimes you really... there's units that you do not put chaff in front of, and you just let them, if somebody wants to come into them, that's fine. Like a unit of pikemen in the Kingdoms of Men army, there's no reason to have chaff in front of them. You want them to charge them. And that's the secret, I think, of using that chaff is to have it protect the units that need protecting and don't just put them out there for the hell of it. Because, I mean, sometimes you're better off just sticking them behind your army and not ignoring the fact that you have them. And maybe they use it to hold a table section. Maybe you could have piled all 3 Ember Sprites in the middle of the table, and all they did was play control. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert at it by any stretch, but they are sometimes a two-edged sword, and you have to really be careful with the use of chaff. Just want to thank you guys, especially the ones that have watched all 20 episodes of the Epic Quest. I am going to do an Epic Quest finale show at some point, probably later this week. And just to kind of go over every game very quickly and show some pictures of my favorite spots of the game. Again, I appreciate anybody that's watched all 20. I know it's taken me 6 or 7 months to get through all these battles because of had COVID for 3 weeks. That didn't help anything. But just again, appreciate the people that are watching it. And it does take a lot of time and effort to do this stuff, but it's really got me encouraged. My next project is going to be the Abyssal Dwarfs. I've been buying models. I'm thinking about getting a printer to print some more even, besides the ones I've already bought. And can't wait to put it on the table. I'm probably even going to do a proxy battle with them this week, just to see how they work.